Archaeologists uncovered a 12,000-year-old site. Massive stone pillars weighing many tons, intricate carvings, monumental structures built by people who hadn't yet adopted full-scale farming. It's called Gobekli Tepe. It's older than Stonehenge by thousands of years and more than twice as old as the Great Pyramid. But that's not the strangest part. Archaeologists are now discovering that Gobekli Tepe wasn't alone. An entire network of ancient sites is emerging, and it's forcing us to rethink how civilization actually began. In the rolling hills of southeastern Turkey, a discovery was made that's been quietly rewriting history. Gobekli Tepe dates back to roughly 9600 BCE. Its oldest structures were built nearly 12,000 years ago. And to put that into perspective, it's more than twice as old as the Great Pyramid and predates Stonehenge by over 6,000 years. It was built just as the world was emerging from the last ice age, a time when, according to the old textbooks, humans were supposed to be nothing more than small nomadic bands of hunter-gatherers. But Gobekli Tepe is anything but simple. It's a massive complex of circular enclosures built with colossal T-shaped stone pillars weighing up to 50 tons. They were quarried and moved from nearby hills without any evidence of wheels or domesticated animals for heavy lifting, and then intricately carved. They're covered in detailed reliefs of animals like foxes, boars, and vultures, revealing this rich, symbolic world that wasn't supposed to exist for thousands more years. At least that's what we thought. The discovery of the site in the 90s by archaeologist Klaus Schmidt was a shock. For decades, the consensus was that agriculture was the big bang for civilization. People farmed, food surpluses led to settled villages, and that eventually led to big projects like religion and monuments. Gobekli Tepe complicates that neat story. Here was this massive cathedral on a hill built by people who were, by all accounts, hunter-gatherers. It suggests that complex social organization and shared belief systems may have come before the widespread adoption of agriculture, not the other way around. The urge to gather, to worship, and to build on a grand scale seems to be far more ancient than we ever thought. The scale of Gobekli Tepe is really hard to wrap your head around. What we see today is just a fraction of the site. Geophysical surveys shows that dozens more enclosures are still buried, suggesting this was a project that spanned generations. Building this required a level of planning and social organization previously thought impossible for a pre-agricultural society. You'd need to mobilize, feed, and house a huge workforce. You'd need specialized craftsmen to quarry, move, and carve those enormous pillars. And the plot thickens. Very recent excavations have started to uncover rectangular buildings that may have served as homes, suggesting this wasn't just a temple, but part of a larger, more prominent settlement. I mean, imagine that, a community living in some of the world's first villages, all centered around a megalithic complex nearly 12,000 years ago. But Gobekli Tepe isn't an anomaly anymore. It's now seen as the heart of a region dotted with similar sites, an area known as Tas Tepler, or the Stone Hills. A nearby sister site, Karahan Tepe, is from the same period and might be just as old, if not older, in some of its parts. There, archaeologists have found more T-shaped pillars in a stunning chamber with 11 pillars, interpreted by some as phallic, rising from a rock-cut bench. Recent findings include incredible statues, including a life-size 2.3-meter tall human figure found anchored into the architecture. This was a network of settlements sharing a sophisticated ideology and the ability to build on a huge scale, but the entire culture was lost. So what happened to these people? Why did they deliberately bury all their magnificent structures under tons of earth around 8000 BCE and seemingly move on? This is where the story connects to one of our planet's biggest climate mysteries, the Younger Dryas. Around 12,800 years ago, just as Earth was warming up after the Ice Age, the climate suddenly, catastrophically plunged back into a deep freeze that lasted for over 1,000 years. For decades, scientists have debated the cause. One of the most dramatic and controversial ideas is the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. This theory proposes that a comet struck or exploded over North America, which set off continent-spanning wildfires, caused the abrupt climate shift. For a long time, this idea was on the scientific fringe. Proponents point to a thin layer of sediment found on multiple continents containing high levels of platinum, and other markers they argue are proxies for a cosmic impact. But the hypothesis remains debated. A lot of scientists have been unable to replicate the findings or attribute them to other causes like volcanic activity, and they point to inconsistencies in the timeline. Still, the possibility of a global cataclysm right when all this was happening is an interesting idea. Some speculate, without direct proof mind you, that the builders of Gobekli Tepe were survivors of this event. Could their temples have been an attempt to make sense of a world that was totally turned upside down? This theory hints that the story of civilization isn't a steady climb, but this cycle of rising and falling. Asks, what if an advanced culture was already emerging before the Younger Dryas, only to be knocked back into a dark age? In that view, Gobekli Tepe might not be the birth of civilization, but its rebirth. And with all this mind-bending evidence, you have to ask, why isn't Gobekli Tepe as famous as the pyramids? Well, the answer is a bit complicated. First, archaeology moves slowly and it's very cautious. Ideas that overturn a century of thinking is often met with some skepticism, and it takes decades for new evidence to be fully accepted. The notion that hunter-gatherers could build monuments on this scale is so radical that some in the academic world are still grappling with it. Second, the site is hard to interpret. The people of Gobekli Tepe left no written language. All we have are these stone monuments covered in symbols that we don't really fully understand. It's much easier to tell the story of ancient Egypt or Rome, where we have texts that explain their kings, their gods, their wars, all their lore, if you will. Gobekli Tepe is beautiful, but it is frustrating to understand. And finally, there's the power of narrative. The story of this slow, steady march of progress is simple and satisfying. The idea of a lost, complex chapter of human history, a sophisticated society nearly erased by time and catastrophe, it's more unsettling. It suggests our past is darker, more mysterious and complicated than we think, and that civilization itself might be more fragile than we like to think. For some, it's a story that's easier to ignore than to confront. So where does that leave us? We have megalithic structures nearly 12,000 years old, built by people who we wouldn't think would be able to. We have proof of a sophisticated symbolic culture thriving thousands of years before the first cities of Mesopotamia. We have a whole network of settlements across stone hills of Turkey, all sharing a common tradition. And we have the shadow of a global cataclysm that may have reset the clock on human progress. This is not about Atlantis or ancient aliens. This is about real archaeological evidence proving our understanding of the past is incomplete. The people of Gobekli Tepe were not primitive. They were organized, innovative, driven. They were the architects of a world we're only beginning to rediscover. The story shows us that the roots of civilization are a lot deeper, more complex than we ever imagined.